This is just a bass drop that I added for effect at one point. The leads, I'm not really that into recycling my leads because it's almost like the face of the song, and it's a little bit more recognizable. Recycling things like drums and bass sounds, it's just not as big of a deal. But if you recycle the same synth leads every time, it becomes a little bit disheartening for listeners. So I don't really like to do it. I've added a few just to kind of show you a little bit about arrangement. You can see too, a lot of them are just straight copies of the bass sound. Like this, here's the bass sound, right? And then I copied that MIDI up to this other channel to give you that kind of like obnoxious bit redux dubstep high end. Oh, we're raving now. Watch out. But yeah, so that's a lot of fun too. It's kind of like one of those classic lead sounds. So I thought I'd throw it in there. But yeah, so there's a bunch of different leads you can check out. They're not as important to the template. The riser maker is really important. Everybody always asks me how to make risers, and the key is to get a nice long oscillator or a synth or something, and then go make a MIDI note at the root of your key. In this case, I wrote it in C. It's just a demo tune, and then you put a big old pitch bend on it. Start all the way at the bottom, go all the way to the top. If your pitch bend is set to octaves, it'll come out in key. And then once you ramp the pitch, just start ramping other parameters. I grabbed an Erosion plugin here and just kind of hit record up here and then wiggled the mouse around to make this shape. There's this plugin, which is AutoPan. It's going to be providing a bit of a gate. Check it out. Use the AutoPan as a gate to make that effect. And then I've just swept the FM top and a few other parameters. So you got one riser going up. Right, a little bit of delay on those, and another riser going down later. Really easy. All I did was invert the pitch envelope. Super straightforward. And then to add some sass and some phrasing and personality, I've put a bunch of MIDI notes here into a 128 of just these kind of hip-hoppy sounding one-shots and like vocals and little scratches and stuff. And that's going to provide a lot more of that kind of lyrical flow of things and the phrasing. Doesn't sound like much until you have it in the mix, and then it really ties things together. So the last kind of really cool thing about this template is the system of sends. And I have all of my dub delays, my glitchy kind of tweaky delays, two different reverbs, one for tight sounds like drums and bass, and one for leads and risers and whatnot. An exciter, which is used to balance and sharpen the high end of the entire mix. It's a very, very important effect to understand. A Widener, which is something that's like an exciter that I invented, where you use a utility plugin here to isolate just the edges of the stereo field and then boost and compress it. Adds a lot of richness and thickness and width to your song. G, I just use to feed side chains. When you have one sound, for example, a bass sound, and you want to have two or more sounds, punch it out of the way, sidechain style. You don't want to have 5 compressors on this one channel. I find it better to have one compressor that is fed by a sidechain channel that I call gate, and then I have all the sounds that I want to punch it out, send to gate, and they all knock it out. It's perhaps a little complicated for some people, but the people who know will love it. And then the last one, the last send, is just a simple delay that counts in 4s, because the dub delay counts in 3s to kind of create a polyrhythm. Sometimes you want it to sound more like a loop delay, so I call it loop, but it's not actually a looper. It's just a delay that counts in 4s. And then I've put a mastering suite on here. That's just one of the Ableton defaults. I like to kind of flick it on and off to get perspective as I'm writing, because sometimes it'll bring different textures out of your sounds that you may have not noticed. But in my experience, mixing to a limiter is generally a bad idea, because it's going to it's just going to give you the wrong impression of where your sounds are at. using one as kind of like a microscope or whatever is cool while the song is playing. You can just go back and forth and A/B and see if you notice anything else interesting. But generally, you should get your mix sounding as good as you can and then master it later. But it's just a good reference, so I've left it on there. And then, oh yeah, last but not least, the drum bus. This is very important. All of the percussion channels, all, as you can see, go to the drum bus in that audio 2 field. The drum bus is just a normal track that's had monitoring set to in, right? And then you could select any tracks you want to send to it and go to in. Boom. Now this is the drum bus. You see how I made that very, very quick. So the drum bus allows you to group all the channels of a given family at once. So let's say that I wanted to do the volume of my whole beat. You can just automate that up and down rather than trying to automate each channel individually. It also allows other group processing techniques. So I've added a reverb, an exciter, and whatnot, a parallel compressor. Not really going to get into what that does. Just check it out and you'll see. Low pass for a few sections. For example, here you can hear the low pass being used. Right, but that just allows like the drums to all be processed as a unit, which is quite handy. All right, so without further ado, now that you've seen all the individual parts, let's listen to this song. But yeah, anyway, you get the picture. Just analyze my arrangement. It's very, very simple, but it will kind of illustrate how to use the template, how to carry a track to completion relatively quickly, and I hope it'll help you out. So yeah, once again, I'm ill.Gates. Thanks for watching. The template's up at ill.Gates.com. Come and cop it if you dare. Have your shit taken to the next level. Good times. Good times. Lots of love, everyone. Cheers.